there's a whole handful of grievers that don't have the word to put with it. They don't
Right.
know that that's a trigger. They just know they drive past the hospital where their mom died and they feel instantly sick and they don't have a word to put with it, right? So I go back and forth. Should we use the word trigger or should we just talk about what the situation is? So yes, I'm excited to delve into this.
No, and I'm glad you brought up the topic of the physical consequences of triggers, where some people think, it just makes you sad. You have this immense feeling of sadness, but sometimes triggers can look like something different than sadness, and that makes it even harder to identify what's causing it. Being able to sit still and kind of really understand, well, what happened today? Was it something new? Was it something that what can you pinpoint exactly what caused this change in either emotion or your physical being? So I
Yeah.
think that's something important that not people talk about it a lot. And then understanding, I think this is a good topic to understand, when is it time for you to get some more help, because you're not able to just troubleshoot it on your own versus talking to other people in your family who may seem like they're handling things well, and either they might know what their triggers are and are prepared for them, or they don't get triggered like you do. So
Yeah.
they might not be equipped like you do to handle certain things, because the things that bother you might not necessarily bother them.
Exactly. So the first thing I did was I looked up the definition of trigger. I wanted to start from the beginning. So a trigger is a person, a place, or a thing, a situation that elicits an intense or unexpected emotional response. And that's so huge right here. We have to understand that it is an unexpected emotional response to going past it, walking past them, talking to them. Any sensory stimulus can be a potential trigger, right? Triggers are unique for every person, right? Essentially, a non threatening stimulus is triggering an automatic fight or flight response, but it comes in the form of our heart. Here's the other thing that I think happens: we see the trigger, we see the place, and then we have a thought about it. Okay, so I'm driving in the car, I'm driving past the hospital. I don't realize I'm driving past the hospital. And then all of a sudden, I look over at the hospital. And before we have the trigger, this is what we need to understand: we have the thought, and the thought causes the emotion. And that part is where we call it the trigger, right? So I'm driving past the hospital and I have a thought: oh my gosh, I remember mom closing her eyes. It could be something as simple as that. I remember her closing her eyes. I remember her mouth being dry, whatever it was that happened in the hospital. And then you have a response of sadness. That's sort of how the whole trigger takes place.
But I think our brains are so complex that sometimes we don't have the awareness of the thought. And people think because they don't have the awareness of the thought that the thought didn't happen. When in reality, my favorite example to use is, because I've been practicing this recently, where I notice when I say something and I didn't even think about it before I say it. And that's not actually who I am. I'm always thinking first and then talking. But I realize that I'm having a lot of knee-jerk reactions to things. And I'll say something like, especially if I'm hungry. You ever just sit there and you were thinking, I'm hungry, but you didn't even realize you were thinking it till it comes out of your mouth and say, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And then
Right.
imagine doing that in a setting where everybody looking at you like, okay, you're hungry, but understanding that some of us don't have that connection or that awareness of where we're thinking first and then reacting.
Yeah.
We are so busy, because if you're driving, you might be thinking about where you're trying to go. You're not thinking about this route or this specific trigger. You're thinking about the very next thing.
So, and I love that you said that, because this is the other thing. Sometimes our thoughts are yelling in our head, right? I don't like purple. I don't like the color purple. I never wear purple. I don't want to go near purple. That's not me, but I'm just saying that. I sometimes it's yelling in our head. The thoughts are really loud, but sometimes it whispers, especially if it's coming from the heart. And that's why we don't hear it, because it doesn't come in the forefront of our mind and it's not really not loud. So it'll be something like, oh, that was the hospital where mom died. Just a quiet whisper of a thought. you don't even hear it. You don't acknowledge that that thought even went through your head, because immediately you zoom into the feeling that it gave you. You zoom into that feeling. And that is the part of where the trigger is coming from, is two places in our body are playing together.
And I want to add that so we have two different types of triggers, I think. The ones that are obvious, like you said, the hospital, that's obvious. You know, you can look at it and you know exactly why that is giving you some type of emotional response. But then there's some that's very sneaky where you might not realize it on surface level, but then later on you might sit down and say, oh, that 1+1 is 2. That makes sense, but sometimes it's not necessarily as obvious. And that's
Yes.
what I think we should also talk about today, because I think that we talk, obvious, if you might avoid a certain route because every time you pass by this certain thing, then you're going to be triggered. But what about, so with the obvious ones, I think the best way to address it is, how do you prepare for things that are beyond your control? For example, I know someone whose family members passed away in a car accident because the other person was speeding. And so when she sees people speed, it really gives her anxiety. But she can't control the other people on the road. And is she going to turn into a hermit where she never goes outside and never is in a place where there's traffic? Or what can she do to address that trigger that is beyond her control, unavoidable, but it's still hard for her to overcome because it reminds her that somebody took her own family's life by speeding. So I think that's one specific thing. And before we switch to the next topic, I mean, I don't need you to go into the next topic, but before I lose my train of thought, the second one is, it might be something that's so subliminal, so under the radar. For example, my sister, excuse me, my sister passed away when she was just 15. And so I might not even realize by the time my child turns 15, this is going to be a trigger for me because I'm just living my life. I
Yep.
was her same age. So who's to think how I'm going to feel when I have a 15-year-old
Yeah.
child?
Yeah.
Or even more, I could trigger my stepmom by sending her pictures of my 15-year-old child, not even understanding how that might trigger her.
Yeah. So just like the same way, I want to talk about the one who's triggered by the car accidents and the speeding, right? So real quick, I just want to show you this because it really does go into play into what we're talking about. So the brain is really powerful. The brain is really powerful, and it can it thinks its job is to keep us safe. So let's say we're driving down the freeway and we know that we had a family member that died in a car accident, but the other person was speeding. Our brain, every time we see a speeder now, sends that thought and that reminder to us. So we're getting all of those reminders about speed. It's constantly there. So it's actually we're almost working in reverse. So as soon as she sees the speeder, I guarantee you she's having a thought. And I'm not sure that she really knows what the thought is, because we said sometimes the thoughts whisper, and then immediately it sends to our heart. And just like I said, it's a flight or flight. So she's probably like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. It's not safe. So she wants to run. And then the anxiety starts. The anxiety starts. Now, that's a very simple way of putting what I think you're describing is going on. And I want you guys to understand this from Joy and myself. The trigger can come from your heart or it can come from your brain first. It can come from either one. The brain is going to give you a thought. It's going to see a place and then give you a thought. And just like you said, Joy, it could be subliminal. It can be so small. As your daughter starts aging towards 15, your heart starts to feel a certain way. I'm telling you 100%, when we are grieving, we are feeling multiple triggers every single day. Not just one trigger, we're feeling multiple triggers every single day.
And so how would you advise someone who now they're becoming aware of their triggers? Now what? How to deal with it? How to address, again, things beyond their control, or then if it is in their control, what actual steps or what can they say or do to kind of manage that?
So one of the things for sure is they're going to have to go after the thoughts and see what the thoughts are, and see and that's not so much the grief work as it is doing the brain work. let's talk about breaking down cars speeding, cars coming past you speeding, what's going on with your thoughts, and really go there and take a deep dive into the brain and to the thoughts before we even get into the heart. It's almost it's a little bit separate from the grief work, but it's connected to the grief work. And so I would definitely, if I was working with a client like that, and so one of the things we want to do is, if you're not even working with somebody, I would suggest you do a brain dump. You really just take out a piece of paper and write the word speeding on it, and write out all of your fears about the speed, so that this is the number one way to know what's going on for you and what your brain is really thinking about when it hears or sees speeding. So then you're at least aware of the thoughts that you're at least having around that certain trigger, and you can start putting them down and paying attention to them.
Do you think, for example, someone like me, where it's very important to me that my job is close enough to home, and then the actual route, because I have to drop the children off, then I have to go to work, and I have to think about traffic, and I have to think about all of those things. So when we found somewhere to live, I want to live close to the highway, so it's easy for me to get to the places I need to get to, but I don't want it to require me for my daily routines to get on the highway. Being able to make those small adjustments, and it sounds small because finding a career and being nitpicky about certain things is definitely not a small task, but being able to figure out what you have control over, just making a decision to work remotely. So yes, you still have to go out and about to do certain things, but I don't have to go every day, or I don't have to go, being able to figure out what is going to give you comfort. Do you think that is an avoidance strategy, or is that something that people have to kind of incorporate when they have these experiences and their life has changed now?
I think 100% they have to incorporate those, but they also have to be very careful, because we also hear of people, especially after grieving experiences, that don't feel safe outside of their home, that don't feel safe leaving the home because of their fears and because of their triggers and because they become so overwhelming. And sometimes we just have to work a little bit at a time and allow that trigger to be there, feel it, let the feeling be there just a little bit at a time, and process each emotion as it's coming a little bit at a time. And so for some clients, it could take days, weeks, months of just working on that emotion. And here's the other thing. If that's where you are, that's absolutely okay. It's absolutely okay.
So one of the questions that I prepared for before getting on live was self-awareness. What role does self-awareness and mindfulness play in recognizing and managing grief triggers? I want to use myself as an example because I'm the type of person where I can plan ahead for something that's stagnant, like, oh, back to school is coming up. All right, I could plan for that. But when it's something, if I've already prepared for back to school, however many years, and now this school year is different for whatever reason, a death has happened. And again, people don't always think about, like, maybe it didn't happen to me, but my child experience the death of their classmate, their teacher, or someone else that they are experiencing, and I'm not even thinking about it because it's not something that relates to me or is affecting me directly. A child, and I'm saying children, but some adults, they don't have the self-awareness to say, this is why I'm getting anxiety for going back to school, for going back to work, for going wherever I'm about to go, because they just have the feeling. They're like dreading it. They start, the mind starts telling them all of these things. I quit my job every morning on my way. When I'm in my bed sleep and I don't want to wake up, it's like, do I really want to work? So imagine, most of us can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. Imagine someone who's not self-aware being able to say, why do I have to go to school? And they're not realizing it's the trigger of, they're going to go and that person's not going to be there anymore, or that person can no longer go. What if they might not even went to the same school, but it's like, I'm going to school, but my cousin can't go to school anymore.
So one of the things, I agree with you, and being self-aware is 100%. It is 100% the ticket out, right? It's going to be the ticket out, but sometimes we need help. We need to help them become aware of that, because some of these thoughts are playing, they're whispering and they're not hearing. One of the other things that we can do is, especially like, let's say I go to back to school night, right? And I'm feeling uncomfortable. You can simply put your hand over your heart and try to call on what it is that's upsetting you or bothering you. This is something you can do quietly by yourself. What is this feeling that I'm having? And see if you can draw on it. Once you can feel the feeling, oh, this is sadness. I'm feeling really sad. Then once you start, then you've identified the emotion. Start going back to what were the things that you were thinking before, or what is it just surrounding you that's making you uncomfortable. And the same thing for the kids. The kids, they're going to talk in emotion if we talk in emotion to them. Man, when I came to this back to school night and I looked at Susie's desk and I saw she wasn't there, I felt really sad. Like I want to tell the story, make it short, and add an emotion word to it. And so then what's going to happen is your little Bobby or your little Karis is going to be able to use that word too. So you have a responsibility to start the question and the conversation. If we're aware of what's going on in our surroundings and these feelings and emotions that it's bringing up, it's more likely that we're going to get to the bottom of what this trigger is and what's causing these emotions.
And I think too, there's still power in preparation, even if you don't have it quite figured out. So an example is one of our speakers from the Gone Too Soon retreat. She talked about safe conversations and what do you do when people keep asking you over and over what happened, when people ask you how you're doing. People don't understand those are triggers, right? People don't, and some people know, but it's like their curiosity or your expression is making them feel like, well, I need to know what happened so that I can support you, or I need to know how you're doing so I know where I can step in. And one of the words that she used to me was just so powerful. People would ask her, how are you doing? And she'll say, I'm navigating. And that was just crazy to me to just use that one word, but it doesn't say exactly how you're doing because you might not know. I don't know where I'm at, how I'm doing. I'm navigating, I'm figuring it out, but that gives them a pause to say, okay, that kind of gives you a little bit more power over the conversation as opposed, because a lot of people say I'm okay or I'm not okay. And then those things lead to more questions, or they lead to a more uncomfortable situation where navigating is almost a way to shut it down if that's what you're trying to do. But being able to use certain language, even if it's body language, even instead of just ignoring phone calls when people checking on you, being able to say, hey, I'm having another example that was used is a color, like I'm having a purple day.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody knows what a purple day is, but the people in your family. But at least now it's like, I'm not going to go so hard on my child about not washing the dishes because they're having a purple day today.
Yeah.
As opposed to, okay, well, you can't have a purple day every day, but I can allow you to have a purple day today, and I'm going to give you some grace. Those little things, those little shifts sometimes makes all the difference in relationships, makes all the difference in your self-awareness and your control over things that you may not have control of other people, but you have control on how they interact with you.
100%. I love that. I'm navigating. I love that. That was my first time hearing that. So I definitely am going to be borrowing that. But, okay. So it's a catch-22. And hear me out on this. The number one thing that the griever wants is to talk about what just happened to them. The number one thing that they want. The number one thing that society and the people around us want is to not talk about it, because they don't want to make you cry, right? So here I am. I need to talk about it, yet they don't want to ask me about it because they don't want to make me cry. That part I get. Or you'll have the other person who is really sincerely coming up to you right as you're walking in to go teach your class. You're walking in to go teach your class. The other professor comes up. She puts her hand on yours and says, how's your grief doing? And she's really sincere with it, right? You have the right to say, thank you for asking, but now is not the time. You have the right to say. When you say the words, thank you for asking, you're giving them the respect. Hey, I'm honoring that you're honoring me. Let's catch up later. I'd love to go into this with you a little more. Do you know that we as a griever has the right not to go in the conversation? And by saying I'm navigating, it's a period at the end of that. I'm navigating, period. Means I don't have to go into it. I also believe this to be true, and this is just from being around grievers and being around grieving situations. People want to know the parts we don't talk about. They want to know the gory parts. They want to know the ugly parts. So a lot of times when people are asking, they're asking for the gossip and the drama. And so are they really sincere? And because the griever is highly sensitive to everything because all of their nerve endings are exposed, they don't feel secure going into the conversation, which can also be a trigger for them. Even you asking, even you saying their person's name can trigger them in a way that sets them off and makes them draw more in.
And so I actually looked up a list of, like, I guess, popular triggers. So I
Yeah.
wanted to go into
That's why
that.
I'm
I think
saying that.
the number one thing is anniversaries. Everybody remembers, but what I've learned, because I follow so many grief specialists now, is that people think it's the actual day that they have to worry about, but sometimes it's leading up to the day that they have to actually
Yes.
prepare for.
Yes.
Because again, like you said, your mind and your body remembers. And even though it might be a subconscious thing that your mind is remembering, you have to prepare even for the week before or the month before.
Yes.
Not necessarily everybody has the opportunity to take off all of that time, but under already preparing yourself, putting things in order, saving up time. Don't use all your vacation time on your birthday when you know you might need some time around that anniversary. That's what I think is important about these sessions that we have, is because there's these little ninja tricks that you never really think about until it hits you, right? Like you're facing it, you're forced to deal with it. And then also, it's like when you're in the middle of grieving, you're not trying to figure it out. You just want it to go away. You don't want to feel how you feel anymore. So being able to already have these tools and these tactics available to you when it comes, then you're able to identify it quicker, or you can help someone else. And then when you asking them, how can I help, you're actually being helpful because you're giving them out of the box things that they can consider or try, as opposed to, oh, just go get some rest and take a day off and go to the spa. I feel like people have these I don't know what word I want to use, because those could be useful, but they're sometimes not enough for people to avoid having the trigger alter their whole day or their whole life because they're not addressing it head on.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you brought up anniversaries because I want to go just one before the 1 year anniversary. We have that day that they died anniversary. Okay. So I can't even tell you how many clients tell me it's Thursday. Thursdays are bad days. Thursday.
The day of the week.
So that the day of the week is the first trigger that typically happens with the griever, right? So then next Thursday is going to be a bad day. A lot of times I will reach out to the clients on that day. Hey, how's your Thursday going? Because they grab that day and that becomes their first trigger. Now every Thursday is a bad day. What we do find is as the grievers are starting to go into doing their work, that holding on to that day as the bad day starts to dissipate. It starts to not become such an important day for them. But that can be a day. That's our first thing first trigger we typically hold on to, right? And let's talk about some of the obvious ones. Christmas, birthday, right? Your birthday, his birthday, your wedding anniversary, Thanksgiving. I say this all the time, Joy, and this is so true. Groundhog's Day could be a day that you and I never celebrate. But because everybody's talking about it on the news, do you know that it could literally set us off that everybody is celebrating Groundhog's Day, even though that's something that never bothered me. But now it becomes a trigger for me because it's a holiday. Even if it's a holiday you don't celebrate, it can become a trigger for you because everybody around you. I went in the store last week and there's Halloween candy out already, right? What if Halloween was one of your triggers? Like you're already starting and people are already dreading, grievers are already dreading Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I just walked into CVS and they have the Halloween candy out.
And that's what I mean. It's like it's almost as if there's so many things that you can't control that's not the answer. Some people are control freaks and they think the answer is, okay, well, I know Christmas is a trigger, so I'm gonna avoid certain things. But how do you avoid that? You can't it's hard to still maintain a healthy lifestyle with avoidance. But there's a way, there's some things that you can change, and there's some boundaries that you can set that will help you. Like, I feel like avoid is the extreme. There's ways to avoid it where you're not fully immersed in it. You might not go to a pumpkin patch, or you might not do certain things, but that doesn't mean that Halloween is canceled, because you can't cancel it for America, who's shoving it down your throat.
Yeah. one of the things for sure is where the holidays are concerned, and you and I've done this show before where we talked about setting new traditions, new family traditions, so that you are not triggered. And the one thing is, go through your list of your holidays, see what you can handle, what you know you can handle, and what you can't handle, what's going to trigger you. And then you and your family sit together and make a new tradition. Um, Even a word can trigger us, right? Even a color can trigger us. Did you ever watch Still Magnolias? Have you ever
Yes.
seen that movie? Remember at the end where she's pushing the baby and she's pushing the baby in the swing, and the lady she's asking the lady what she wants to name her baby, and she said, "I think I'm going to name her Shelby," and she goes, "Oh, I'm tickled pink," and then she looks off and she goes, "Pink." That was a trigger for her. She know that her daughter's favorite color was pink. She said the word pink for the first time, and she looked off, and she just had that moment. That's exactly how we all have to be when we are triggered. We
And
have to acknowledge the trigger, grab the word, but then find the emotion that goes with it. Find the emotion. If I walk into CVS and Halloween is a trigger for me and I see the candy corn, which is what I saw, the candy corn, and I see the candy corn out and it's a trigger for me, slow down for 1 second, buy the candy corn, just look at it. Wow, that makes me sad. Halloween is coming again. That's going to be another Halloween without it. It makes me sad. Grab the emotion, let the emotion be there. Let it be there as long as you can, even if you can just get it for 1 minute and then go on. What I just told you is not going to make you feel better, and it's not going to make the trigger go away, but it'll help you ease into moving beyond the candy corn and going to the next aisle.
I think what you're saying is conditioning, because when I was saying avoidance is can be very toxic, when you condition yourself for certain things that you can't avoid or you can't control, then as the more times you experience it, the less of an impact it has,
Yeah,
because you acknowledged it, you sat in it, and you conditioned yourself to not allow it to take over. And you didn't you because again, you could have went over the edge just based off of this one trigger,
yeah,
as opposed to you maintaining control of yourself and say, I'm not going to allow this to take over my day. Let
yeah.
me just have this moment, sit in this moment, and let the moment pass. I think is powerful.
And what's happening with the triggers is they're rekindling the emotions that you think that sometimes that you think you've gone past, right? So my loss could have happened last year, right? Right at Halloween. And I'm doing so well. And I think I'm doing so well until I see the candy corn and then it triggers me again, right? One of my triggers, Joy, for my dad was cutting onions. This is gonna sound really funny, but he always was like, "Y'all never put enough onions in everything. Every time y'all cook, you need more onions in this. You need more onions." But he would always just say that. I don't know who the y'all were, but he said it all the time. There's not a time, even today, that I don't get out an onion and I hear him saying that. In the beginning, we all do this, but I would really be crying during cutting the onion. I would just be crying. I'd be cutting the onion and just hearing his voice and hearing him say that. Now I'm cutting the onion because time has elapsed and I've done my grief work. And I'm literally smiling to myself as all the tears are falling down from the onions. But I can hear him saying it, and it's a different trigger for me. And that's when we know that we've gotten into a different place with that trigger, where we can be by it, we can walk past the candy corn. And what happens a lot of times with triggers, which is really, I might probably saying this too early in the show, but a lot of times once we've done our work and we've gotten comfortable with our triggers and we're allowing the emotions, sometimes we don't even realize we drove past the hospital. People, clients will call me up all the time and say, I drove past the hospital. I didn't even realize it. It didn't even trigger me. I didn't even think about it. When you do your work in conditioning, just like you're,
So I don't know if it's my internet or hers, but we froze. Um, I hope we're not talking at the same time, but if she can hear me and I can't hear her, I wanted to add another trigger. Let's see what's going on. I don't want to keep going because now I'm talking to myself. So let us know in the comments if you're watching, if you can hear me. If you can, I'll keep going. If not, then I will pause because she's probably doing the same thing. Okay. Okay. So she's frozen. All right. So another thing that I think people don't understand is sounds and smells. Those I feel like is really, really sneaky because we're aware of words, what we hear. We're aware of places and things, those tangible things. But when it's a smell, like imagine if it is an onion or if it's a smell that you don't pay attention to often. It could be the air freshener in your house and you guys moved after it happened and then you go somewhere else and they use that same exact scent and you might not pick up on it right away, but that is also something that could be triggering you that you need to pay attention to. I think with sounds it could be obviously the sound of their voice. Somebody who sounds like them, they might have the same laugh or they might have a personality that reminds you of your person, but then understanding that those triggers again beyond your control. You can't control what other people sound like or what smells they have in the store or at other people's houses, but the awareness part is where you have some control and you're able to address those triggers in real time. So the next thing on my list is personal belongings. And so I know in our last session Sharon actually shared a teddy bear that she got made out of a shirt of her nephew. And to me that was just so endearing because you don't always think of that in a moment of what can I do to remember this person, but make it whimsical and make it more endearing, make it something fun where you can feel close to that person, but you don't have to wear their actual t-shirt. You can turn it into something else. Some people make it into quilts. Some people incorporate different people in the family. So now it's a family project and we're all remembering the person that's lost. So I think that's really powerful. For me, this next one is really hits close to home is songs or music because my granddad, oh my God, he loved old school music, right? So he loved. When my King Say happened, he was the person that I did a dance with, and it was the song "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World." And even though that's not a song that often comes on the radio, it's never going to be a time that that song is playing that is not going to sit me down and put me in a place of thinking about me and him dancing and having the time of our life, and the fact that we can't do that anymore. Here's Sharon. She's back in. Hey, Sharon.
I lost internet.
Yeah, that happens, right?
Yeah, that happens, and I'm on my phone. Did you go out or just me?
No, just you. So I've been talking
Okay.
to them about smells and sounds, and I just started talking about music because again, I think there's a balance between what is obvious. We know certain songs are going to trigger you, but then you have to remember, what if it's something like for people who've been married for 20, 30 years and they met at high school, and it might have been a song that they danced to at prom. That song might not have been important to them all the way throughout their marriage, all the way till the end of their person's death. But there's some feedback now. Can you hear me? Can you hear the feedback?
I can hear you. I have no feedback.
Okay. But sometimes something your brain remembers that you're not aware of can trigger you as well. And making sure that you understand that just take some time to investigate. Sometimes that might make all of a difference for you to have these feelings and be in control of them. It's because you're taking the time to investigate and isolate certain things and say that might be it, and then figure out why is that's triggering you, because these movies and TV shows play these songs and have these storylines, and you don't even know what you're getting yourself into until it's too late.
So, Joy, one of the questions that you're younger than I am, so you might not remember this, but let me just ask you, where were you at 9/11?
I was in middle school, so I
Yeah.
was in my class.
Okay. And tell me about when you found out.
It was like they were talking about it. You know, the adults around were talking about it, and it was like new stuff playing in the background. But I never literally sat in front of the TV and watched it. I just knew something was going on and was curious. And then my mom was one of those type of people who was there in the blink of an eye, so I already knew she was on her way. Like I didn't have a doubt in my mind that she was going to come get me, and she did. She ended up picking me up from school early that day.
So, and you in your mind, you have the vivid memory of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was 6 a.m. in Los Angeles, and I had just turned the television. My husband went to a Bible study, and he was gone with a bunch of guys at a coffee shop, and he woke me up and he left the television on, and then I heard, oh my gosh, like I heard something So I jumped up and looked at the television, and I distinctly remember thinking, this is history being made. And I went and woke my daughters up and made them come in the room and watch it with me and let them see it right from the beginning, because it was history being made right there live. To this day, there are so many things and so many moments where we remember so many aspects of everything that happens to us, especially on big, giant events, right? That you remember the smell, you remember the taste, you remember what you were wearing. People remember what they were wearing, they remember what they were doing. That's number one, so that we have those memories and those things sear into our brain. But how about a song? How many times have you heard a song that just made you feel good inside and you just start dancing no matter what? I think that's a lot of what happens to us with holiday songs, right? My dad would play the Nat King Cole holiday album all the time. And now when I hear Nat King Cole and the holidays, those holiday songs, it brings me right back to that. My dad just sitting back, relaxing, enjoying it. You know, he would be sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee and just that memory. We don't even realize how much the brain remembers. The brain remembers so many things. It remembers every taste we've ever tasted. It remembers every smell. It remembers everything we've ever said, every thought we've ever had. Sometimes and what I'm getting to is that sometimes our triggers are good because the memory was good, and sometimes they're heavy because the memory was heavy. And so understand that triggers can go both ways. They're not just when something bad happens.
No, I literally, while you were talking, that the aha moment came, and I was like, we've been talking so much about the negative effects of triggers
Yeah.
that you can actually use triggers to help you and cope, because you can find things that you know are going to make you laugh, you know are going to make you feel good and enjoy the memory that you're having of your person. You could start your day. For example, when I was in high school, I used to listen to Beyonce's album on my way to school every single day. Like every day I listened to that song. But imagine if me and my sister were riding in the car listening to it too.
Yeah.
And now it's like that could be something that I incorporate into my day to start me off. And that's a happy memory that I can have that can get me through, you know, the rest of my day or those other times, the holiday season. So finding happy triggers to be able to get you over the holidays, over those anniversaries and things like that is also a really good coping mechanism. It might not always work, but sometimes, because I used the example when you were out about the teddy bear, the bunny that you made from Austin's shirt. And so I thought that was really cool, like being able to find something that you relate to, but making it positive and whimsical and fun is, I think, is a really good coping mechanism when it comes to triggers.
So, Joy, I often share about how my girlfriend Sharon of 15 years, my very, very best friend, she died a few years ago, and it just changed my life. You know, you just changed forever. Well, one of the things about Sharon is her favorite color was orange. And I've shared on our lives before that she's been gone 6 years. And so the entire 6 years she's been gone, I've been painting my toenails orange. I don't care about the color orange. I don't. And in the beginning, it was like, it just made me feel close to her. There's really, very rarely do you come upon me and my toenails aren't painted orange. But just a couple of weeks ago, I did my fingernails in honor of her. And it fills my spirit with her. Now, is my fingernails being painted orange, does it make me feel better? And it's a little thing that I have inside for me. That's me looking down at it, and every time I look at this orange, I think of her, and I get filled with that. There are people out there, and I know they're hearing us talk right now, that can't paint their nails in that color, or they won't even wear that color, or they won't go near that color. One of the things that I, and why I keep bringing this up, is as you are allowing the thing that you didn't think you could allow a little bit to come in, it is a sign of your heart starting to heal in that area. So be aware of, as the trigger becomes a little softer, not so heavy, not so hard, that it is a sign. That is one of the first things I start to see when people start turning around in their grief. Second thing, I want to bring this up, which is really important before we get to the end of the show. If we're having triggers as adults, what do you think our kids are having? They're having the triggers too. And we have to allow them the space to have the triggers talk to them about the triggers, it would even be a really great idea for you to share your own triggers with your child, letting them know what your triggers are. Not necessarily that you're putting it on them, but this has been really hard for mommy when I'm going through this, so that they can start talking about their triggers. And like you said, letting them have their purple day, or letting them have a trigger day, or us acknowledging what their triggers are.
And we talked about in the past about grieving in front of our children so they know what it looks like. Because a lot of times,
Yeah.
if you put on this strong face all the time, they think that's what grief looks like because that's
Yeah.
all they see from you. So I think that is a great that's something very important that people need to take into consideration is not only your activities but your language. How many of us that are parents and you hear, like right now, my oldest is 10, my youngest is 4, and I hear him. It's even funnier when I hear them say something that my husband has said, and they said exactly with the same sarcasm or the same personality behind how he says it. But we all know these kids will repeat us, and not even in a way that's negative. It's just they've heard us say it so many times that it becomes a part of their language. So imagine empowering them with language that's actually going to help them to communicate how they're feeling because they hear you doing it. I'm talking about,
Absolutely.
even if I said you're getting on my nerves, my kids are telling their siblings, you're getting on my nerves. Well, they don't even know what nerves are, but they heard me say it enough and in context that they know how to use it in the right context as well. And then be careful because these kids pick up these same things from YouTube and all of these other places that they're consuming. And that becomes a part of their language or a part of their behavior as well.
Yes, and that's why I think incorporating the the talking with our children and incorporating the emotional words as quickly as possible and as early as possible helps them to understand it's okay to be sad, and we're going to be sad from time to time, and it's okay to feel that. I remember when mom was sad and she showed me, because their only way to learn how to do stuff is by watching and observing, right? And I distinctly remember when my children were little, if I wanted to know what was going on in the classroom, I would play school with them. And I would let them be the teacher and I would be them. And I'm telling you, they would tell everything on their teacher because they could only act out the teacher they'd only seen, right? It's the same thing for us. When you hear your kids acting like your husband, they're only acting out what they've absolutely seen. It is also a great place to play, to do the role play in a trigger situation and in a greeting situation, right? You can be them and let them be you, and you guys can talk through a groove, do it and act out and do the grieving situation. And you act like how you think they're feeling, and they will correct you and let you know 100%. They will give you they'll give all the secrets up.
Right, because I think that that's a good example of being able to see how other people are receiving your actions. Because when you're in distress, you don't have no, like, you're not worried about what your hair looks like. You're not worried about, certain parts of your appearance or how you say certain things. You might have had more patience before, but right now I'm on edge. So I'm yelling or I'm snappy or I'm jittery. And you don't even notice those things while you're in it. Another great example that I like to use when I talk about that is when I had my children, they were back to back to back. So I was sleep deprived for years. And it becomes normal because I can't get enough sleep. It's just impossible. If it's not one baby, it's one little kid that's having nightmares or pee the bed or something else that's waking me up. And I never had the ability to have uninterrupted sleep on a regular basis. But once I finally started having it, that aha moment of, oh my God, this is different. I can't imagine what my husband had to deal with for all of these years because of me. My whole personality changed because I was sleep deprived. So not realizing that it's certain triggers, and sometimes it could be an actual person. And I'm not saying get rid of the people that you love, but understanding that it could be something about this person that is causing the trigger. And if you don't know it, you just in the normal part of your life, you're not addressing it. And then you're mistreating this person, or you're avoiding this person, or you're dealing with them, but you're mistreating yourself because you're not understanding and addressing how what they are, who they are, what they're doing is triggering you in some way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. The other thing that is so important is that that we tell the truth always. Tell the truth always, especially about your triggers. You have to be honest about what is triggering you and what is being said. Because sometimes what's triggering us, we don't want to say the thing out loud. We don't want to say the triggering thing out loud. The same thing is true, kind of like what I'm going on the tail of what you were just saying. Sometimes our friend and families in our immediate circle, they get sick and tired of us talking about the triggers. They don't want to hear about the triggers. They don't want to hear about them. They think we're overreacting or we're putting too much energy into it. And if that's the case, then stop sharing your triggers with that person. If you don't feel safe enough to share your triggers with them, then don't share with them. Go to the place where you know you're going to get the support. Hear me out, friends. These triggers are real. And in the beginning, they're coming fast and they're coming hard. And they're going to come every single day. You are going to get a relief from the triggers, but it may take a little while. And you have to be okay with it, that they're going to be here. Each one of these triggers is going to be bringing up a different emotion, and you've got to be allowing the emotions to be there.
So we're about to wrap up. I want to let you guys know, if this is your first time catching us, sorry for the glitches and the sounds because of the internet, but we definitely hope that you were able to get some jewels out of the conversation. I want you to know, when Judy talked about this, she actually was our very last speaker in the Gone Too Soon retreat, where she was able to sum up with a lot of what everybody was saying, because again, triggers affect everybody in different ways. So being able to watch her presentation, where she is able to spell out from someone who has experienced grief and now is a grief specialist, how she's triggered. And then when we did her Q&A session during the live event, she was actually able to talk about some spirituality and ways that she's been able to incorporate her religious beliefs into her ability to help others. So we do this every Wednesday, same time, 12 p.m. What time zone is yours, Sharon?
I'm 12.
What time zone?
Oh, Central Standard Time. I'm sorry.
Central Time, 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we have this full program called the Gone Too Soon Retreat on demand. You have access to every last one of the videos, including this one, the replays for all of the live panels that we've been doing every Wednesday. We're at the halfway mark. We're actually starting to get ready for the next one that comes up in September. It's already August, so next month we will be having our very next, which is called Life After Loss. So this is where we're segueing between, we're honoring that person, and now we're going to start honoring ourselves, and what does that look like after a loss. But if you want to be able to get in now while we're still talking about going too soon, and you can have access to ask questions directly to the speakers and directly to the specialists, come on over. I'm going to drop the link in the comments for you to check us out. But I really highly encourage you to get it, no matter where you are in your grief journey. If you know that you need more intense support, Sharon is available. She is open for you to be able to have one-on-one sessions, but the Gone Too Soon retreat is more of a self-paced program, and that's why it's priced affordably. We have all of these different conversations. Next week, we're going to be talking about processing grief at different life stages. So that's a really good one, because as we get older, we have to figure out what this grief means to us, and what that relationship with the person that's no longer here is how is that going to affect us as life goes on. So for $147, you get access to 20 plus presentations, the Q&A replays to those presentations. You get a workbook. You get involved in the journal club for Celebrate Legacy, which is my journal company. We have the live discussion and expert panels. We have a virtual companion that kind of sends you those reminders. So I know some people are like, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to forget about it. But we have our GG, our virtual companion, who actually sends you reminders to just watch one topic a week, as opposed to being overwhelmed with all of them. Or if you're the type of person who likes to binge watch stuff, that's why it's on demand. You can watch whatever you're interested at the time. And then you get a ticket to the Life After Loss retreat if you join now during our Going Too Soon on demand.
The one thing I have to say, the brain person behind this entire amazing program is Joi. And I love that she had the thought and the wherewithal to bring together in the room a ton of grief experts. grief experts from all over the world. She brought them all together for us. Here's the one thing that I know, and I don't know about you, my friend, but when I was grieving, the one question I had is, I didn't know how to do this. How am I going to do this? I don't know how to do this. And what the reason that I committed to this program and continue to show up in this program is because I'm just absolutely blown away by the amount of experts that Joi has been able to bring together and the topics that we discuss. We've discussed triggers. We've discussed curating grief. We've discussed myths. We've discussed the do's and don'ts of grieving. And we're continuing to go on. And yes, I'm already helping Joi gather up some more amazing speakers for our next event. Friends, $147 for your well-being that you can study this out at your own time. I know for a fact a lot of grievers get up in the middle of the night and they're dying for something to look at or learn or study or pull upon to be able to pull in and really get to knowing that, working on their grief at 2 and 3 in the morning when they can't sleep. This is the perfect program for you. It's on demand. You can use it whenever you want. And Joi, thank you so much for bringing this into the world. It is an amazing program.
All right. So until next time, we'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Please invite someone. Next week's going to be really, really fun. We have Coach E coming back to talk about her subject. And I love her realness, her transparency and authenticity. So I really hope to have you guys check in with us. And then if you want to be able to watch the replays, make sure that you upgrade to the on-demand program.
Awesome. Thank you, Joi.
Bye.